Welcome to Mikon's Hardware. Unfortunately, all of my interesting Chinese packages have stuck somewhere and I'm not able to review new Chinese motherboards. That's why for this video I have decided to prepare a list of all interesting single-socket LGA 2011 version 3 motherboards that you can find on AliExpress and tell you everything I know about these motherboards. Of course, I'm not going to talk about every single motherboard, but I have picked all of the most interesting ones. And let's start with the most known and probably one of the best Chinese X99 motherboard, which is Huananzhi X99 TF. This is the most universal and arguably the best motherboard from China. It has 4 DIMMs for DDR3 and 4 DIMMs for DDR4. Supports quad-channel configuration, has a bunch of SATA 3 ports, USB 3 ports, it has integrated I/O shield. Everything works on the motherboard, including RAM timings configuration and CPU overclocking. The only downside of this motherboard is the active VRM cooling. Instead of a large heatsink, Chinese for some reason decided to put 2 small fans. When the motherboard is new, these fans are probably gonna work fine. But after a while, when the fans are gonna get old and deteriorate, you will start to hear some kind of a rattling noise. Right now you can buy some extra replacement fans for this motherboard, but this is extra hassle and extra work. The other downside of this motherboard is its price. Right now you can buy it from AliExpress for around 93-95 euros. For a Chinese X99 motherboard, in my opinion, is a bit too much. If you are not looking to get a combination of DDR3 and DDR4 support on a motherboard, you can get the same motherboard in form of Huananzhi X99 F8. This is exactly the same motherboard, but it supports 8 memory slots for DDR4 instead of 4 for DDR4 and 4 for DDR3. For those who is looking for DDR3 support only, there is also a version called X99 D8. It looks exactly the same as X99 F8 or almost exactly the same. That's why when you're purchasing something from AliExpress, be very careful and read the description what exactly you're buying. Personally, I have not yet tested Huananzhi X99 D8, but judging from the description and from the pictures, it seemed to be identical motherboard with the DDR3 support. Thus, if you're ready to pay a little bit more and you're looking for a bug-free experience, Huananzhi X99 TF, Huananzhi X99 F8 or Huananzhi X99 D8 are your options. Yes, you will have to pay a few extra euros and you will get active VRM cooling, but all in all, these are very decent boards which you can get, plug in your CPU and enjoy. The other option for DDR4 users is Kllisre or JingSha X99 D8. This is a very decent motherboard, which is almost a copy of Huananzhi X99 F8. Compared to Huananzhi X99 F8, it has lost one of the M.2 slots, and instead of active VRM cooling, here we have a large heatsink over the VRM zone. The motherboard also does not have integrated I/O shield, the rest is identical. Unfortunately, this motherboard is being supplied with a kinda limited stock BIOS where you don't have RAM timings and CPU overclocking options, but you can already find a modified original BIOS for this motherboard which unlocks RAM configurations as well as CPU overclocking. For myself, I use Kllisre X99 D8 with Huananzhi X99 F8 BIOS. The BIOS from Huananzhi boards is fully compatible with this Kllisre or JingSha X99 D8. In my opinion, this is the best Chinese X99 motherboard, and for my personal tests and personal usage I use exactly this Kllisre X99 D8 motherboard. Unfortunately, lately its price has risen a little bit, so now it costs about the same as Huananzhi variants. Thus, if you're staying between Kllisre X99 D8 and Huananzhi X99 F8, pick the one which you like the most and pick the one which is cheaper. Other than that, they are basically identical and very similar. The next motherboard which I have been asked the most is this Atermiter or Kllisre X99. This motherboard looks very similar to very old Plex HD X79 Turbo, which was one of the best Chinese X79 motherboards. Unfortunately, Atermiter X99 is not the best motherboard. Even though it costs just under 70 euros and packs a lot of features, I cannot recommend it because of its poor quality. Quite a few of my subscribers reported to me that on this motherboard they have got all sorts of issues, For someone, one memory slot didn't work, for others PCI Express slot didn't work, for others Wi-Fi card did not work, for others NVMe SSD drive didn't work. But the most problems people have got with the USB 3.0 ports. Unfortunately, USB 3.0 ports are not functioning well on this motherboard. If you're using devices which are using USB 3.0 protocol, not USB 2.0 protocol in USB 3.0 port, but the devices which are using USB 3.0 protocol, such as VR glasses or external SSD drives, these devices are not going to function on this motherboard. More precisely, they will function one time and then don't function other time. Personally, I have tested with the external SSD Samsung drive, as well as Oculus Rift S VR glasses. When trying to use it on this motherboard, both of the devices are getting disconnected every now and then and malfunctioning. In my opinion, this is quite a big problem, and you shall not buy this motherboard even though it's very tempting to get this pack of features for 70 euros. Still, if you are aware of all of these issues and you are looking to buy this motherboard, then be careful. Because the motherboard might be green, might be orange, but both of the motherboards can be implemented with DDR3 or DDR4 memory support. Thus, if you need DDR4, make sure that you read in the description that the motherboard supports 4 sticks of DDR4 memory modules. If you need DDR3, the same applies here. Do not count on the color because they're mixing colors and memory compatibility randomly. One more completely useless motherboard is this Machinist X99. It is using the same PCB as Atermiter X99, that's why I suspect that it will have exactly the same problems and issues with the USB 3.0 and other ports. What's even more ridiculous about this motherboard is its price. Right now it's being sold for 96 euros, which is more expensive than Huananzhi X99 TF. Buying Huananzhi, you know that your motherboard is going to work. It also has more features, such as DDR3 and DDR4 memory compatibility, more PCI Express slots, more SATA and USB ports. Thus, I do not plan to test this motherboard and I find it completely useless compared to other options. Unlike the overpriced Machinist X99, I find this little Veineda X99 to be an interesting option. For less than 70 euros you get 4 memory channels, 2 PCI Express X16, 2 PCI Express X1, M.2 and 4 SATA 3 ports. Of course, USB 2 and USB 3 ports are available as well. Originally, I planned to test this motherboard this or the last week, but due to all of the delays, I'm sitting here and recording a video that I have got this motherboard in my mailbox somewhere, but I cannot test it yet. As soon as I get this motherboard to my hands, I will do detailed testing and the results you will be able to see on my channel. Right now it seems like a very nice budget alternative to other options. Another motherboard which might be interesting is Ronin or Alzenit X99. Once I have already tested Ronin X99 motherboard and I was very not happy with it, mainly because it had the same USB 3.0 issues as Atermiter X99. Apart of that problem, the motherboard was supplying excessive voltage to the CPU, that's why CPU was downclocking itself and operating lower than the specification from Intel. Not to mention the turbo boost frequencies, the CPU was operating lower than the base frequency. Lately I have found a few modified BIOSes for this motherboard. Also on AliExpress you can find a refined version of Ronin X99 which is called Alzenit X99 and currently it's being sold for around 72 euros. I am not sure if the refined version is going to fix the USB 3.0 issues, but I have a hope. That's why I have ordered this motherboard, and as soon as it arrives to me I will test it with the stock BIOS as well with the modified BIOS and validate if you can overclock CPU, adjust RAM timings and perform turbo boost unlock. The last ATX motherboard in my comparison is Huananzhi X99 AD3. One more pointless motherboard in my opinion. With the price for 92 euros you are getting less functionality than Huananzhi X99 TF. The motherboard only supports DDR3 without DDR4 support. It also lacks one of the PCI Express X16 slots, as well as M.2 slot for Wi-Fi card. What's more important about this motherboard that it has locked BIOS and you cannot use FPT or AFUVIN to perform turbo boost unlock procedure. One more upset with the motherboard is that it's not able to run DDR3 memory at DDR3 2133. Maximum RAM speed this motherboard can support is DDR3 1866, which is a disappointment. Let me remind you that Huananzhi X99 TF is happily overclocking DDR3 memory to DDR3 2133, of course if your memory can support such frequencies. Thus, in my opinion, Huananzhi X99 AD3 is kinda pointless motherboard because of its price, costing about the same money as Huananzhi X99 TF, but providing significantly less features doesn't make any sense for me. I have not tested and not planning to test Huananzhi X99 AD3, the information I'm telling you here I have collected from the internet. Starting from the MATX format, we have Huananzhi X99 8M. The only problem it has is the price. For 70 euros there are other better alternatives, but overall the motherboard does not have any issues and it also works with Huananzhi X99 F8 BIOS, which lets you overclock CPUs with unlocked multiplier, such as Xeon E5 1650 V3. Thus, if you are looking for a compact quality motherboard for an X99 server, then Huananzhi X99 8M might be your option. But you have to remember that it has just 2 memory slots, thus you will be limited to the dual-channel memory configuration. There is Huananzhi X99 8M D3 version. It looks exactly the same as Huananzhi X99 8M, but it's orange. DDR4 version is green, DDR3 version is orange. I have not tested Huananzhi X99 8M D3 myself, but judging from the specification and from the pictures, it seems to be exactly the same motherboard, just with DDR3 memory compatibility. If I get a chance, I will test the DDR3 version as well, but for now I do not have such plans. Lately you can find this clone of X99 8M D3 on AliExpress. In comparison with the original Huananzhi motherboard, this motherboard is slightly smaller and it has lost one of the PCI Express X1 slots. Other than that, it's cheaper and you can find it as low as 55 euros. You can also find it in DDR3 or DDR4 configuration. Unlike Huananzhi, DDR3 and DDR4 configurations are of the same color. That's why if you're looking for a specific version, be careful what you're buying. Unfortunately, as any other package, my package with this motherboard has got heavily delayed. That's why I'm not yet able to tell you if this motherboard is good or bad to buy. But if it turns out to be a decent option, it might be a very interesting alternative. For 55 euros with some kind of a low-power CPU such as E5 2650L, this could be a very interesting NAS or home server. One more budget option is Kllisre or Qiyida X99 D4. The motherboard looks slightly different compared to Huananzhi X99 8M. One of the major differences is the PCI Express X4 slot. In my opinion, having PCI Express X4 is more important than having 2 PCI Express X1s, because with X4 you can insert additional card with NVMe SSD. Other than that, this motherboard has got one extra M.2 slot for Wi-Fi cards, but it still comes with just 2 memory slots and just 4 SATA ports, 2 of which are being blocked by a graphics card if your graphics card is 2 slots or more. I have no idea why Chinese decided to implement such layout, but if you are using a gaming graphics card which is consuming 2 or more slots of physical space, 2 of your SATA 3 ports will be either inaccessible or unusable. Unlike Huananzhi X99 8M, this motherboard also comes with a very limited BIOS which does not have overclocking options and does not have RAM timings configuration options. Thus you have to either use modified BIOS which is already available on the internet, or you can also flash Huananzhi X99 F8 BIOS, which I have tested on this motherboard and it works perfectly fine. With Huananzhi X99 F8 BIOS, I got all required features, such as CPU overclocking. Of course it only applies for the CPUs with unlocked multiplier, such as E5 1650 V3 or E5 1660 V3. RAM timings is also possible to configure, and NVMe slot works well. I'm not sure why, but many of my subscribers are telling me different stories about this motherboard. Some of them have even implemented Hackintosh using the Kllisre X99 D4. Mostly the feedback is positive, but some of my subscribers has got some compatibility issues between Kllisre X99 D4 and the different SSD drives. For example, some of the Corsair and Kingston drives refuse to work on this motherboard. I have tested a few Samsung drives and one Kingston drive on this motherboard. All of them worked perfectly fine. From the different reports I can also tell that Chinese KingDian and KingSpec NVMe drives are also working on this motherboard with no issues. One more interesting fact is that Kllisre or Qiyida X99 D4 lately is coming with a turbo boost unlock applied inside the BIOS. Thus, if you're planning to use the motherboard with a CPU which does not support turbo boost unlock, for example Xeon E5 V4, or CPU with unlocked multipliers such as Core i7 or Xeon E5 1650-1660 V3, then you need to make sure to restore the original BIOS with all CPU microcodes inside the BIOS. All in all, this is a very decent budget alternative which I can recommend for those who do not bother about 4 SATA ports. If you are looking for the same motherboard but you would like to use all 4 SATA 3 ports, then take a look at JingSha X99 D4. It seems to be exactly the same motherboard as Kllisre X99 D4, but 2 of the problematic SATA ports are looking to the side, that's why you are still able to connect SATA cables even if it's blocked by the graphics card. I am not sure how that happened, but with Kllisre X99 D4 my Core i7-6800K worked well, with the JingSha X99 D4 Core i7-6800K didn't work at all. I don't know why, because I have tested the original BIOS and the Huananzhi X99 F8 BIOS on both of the motherboards. This is definitely not the BIOS issue, because exactly the same BIOS on Kllisre X99 D8 works with Core i7-6800K, on JingSha X99 D4 didn't work at all. Maybe this is related to the chipset which is used on the motherboard, and in this case I cannot say that Kllisre X99 D4 works with Core i7 and JingSha X99 D4 does not work, because Chinese using different chipsets in their motherboards in random fashion, that's why I cannot guarantee that it will work with this or the other one. Anyway, if you plan to overclock an unlocked CPU, I would not recommend either of these boards. Recently you can also find this Daixu X99-GT motherboard, which looks almost identical to Kllisre X99 D4. In comparison to Kllisre, this motherboard has lost 2 USB 2 ports, instead they put a CPU power connector over there. Other than that, it seems to have exactly the same SATA 3 ports problems as Kllisre X99 D4, the same CPU power delivery system and the same cooler. It can also be found for 55 euros on AliExpress, and I have already ordered it for myself for a review. As soon as the motherboard arrives to my hands, I will test it, and test results you will see on my channel. Now it's time to talk about the famous Machinist X99Z. Even though this motherboard has quite a few issues, I tend to approve it, and if you're looking for quad channel configuration on a budget, this is the only option you have. For about 60 euros you are getting quad channel DDR4 memory support, 6 SATA 3 ports, 2 M.2 ports, one for PCI Express and NVMe SSDs, another one for SATA SSDs, a bunch of USB 2 and USB 3 ports. For this money it seems to be a very decent option. The problem with this motherboard is that it comes with a locked BIOS, you cannot use FPT. Still, there is a version of AFU-Win or AFU-DOS which you can use to reflash the BIOS on this motherboard. Unfortunately, the stock BIOS is kinda limited, that's why you will definitely have to use modified BIOS to perform either turbo boost unlock or attempt to overclock your CPU. The other major issue with this motherboard is that clear CMOS does not work. Thus, if you apply CPU overclocking or RAM timings configuration which is not supported by the motherboard, you basically brick your motherboard. In my case, I had to use external USB flash programmer to restore BIOS settings to get the motherboard back to life. This is not available for every user, thus if you're not sure, then better leave everything on default with this motherboard. I have read some news that someone has made a modified BIOS where clear CMOS jumper is working perfectly fine, but I have not yet tested it myself, that's why I cannot say for sure. Additionally, I can say that lately on AliExpress you can find refined version of Machinist X99Z, which has slightly bigger heatsink on the VRAM. It might be beneficial, but it also might be just a plastic cover which Chinese like to put on top to make it look better or whatever. Nevertheless, for the old version Chinese are currently asking about 60 euros, for the refined version they are asking about 70-75 euros. I have already ordered myself the upgraded Machinist X99Z motherboard. I will test it with the modified BIOSes, and the test results will be available on my channel as soon as I get the motherboard, as usual. The last motherboard I am going to take a look in this comparison is Machinist X99 M+. One more ridiculous and pointless motherboard in my opinion. For 62 euros, it packs less features than Machinist X99Z. It has support for dual-channel DDR4 and dual-channel DDR3 memory. I'm not quite sure who this motherboard is for, because you will get something like JingSha or Kllisre X99 D4, which costs just 55 euros, or Huananzhi X99 8M clone, which has DDR3 and DDR4 memory compatibility, and also can be found for 55 euros. This motherboard, on the other hand, has very limited features. For example, only 4 SATA 3 ports, only one M.2 slot. Thus, I do not plan to test this motherboard, but if you have any info about it or you have tested it yourself, I would be very happy to hear it. For the final conclusion, I have picked this 6 motherboard as my recommendation. If you're looking for the ultimate DDR4 compatible X99 motherboard from China, then Kllisre or JingSha X99 D8 is the option I would recommend. There is nothing wrong with Huananzhi X99 F8, but overall I prefer Kllisre or JingSha X99 D8 because it does not have active VRM cooling. If you need DDR3 memory compatibility and still ready to pay a bit more, then it's Huananzhi X99 D8. If you want to have DDR3 and DDR4 memory compatibility, then take a look at Huananzhi X99 TF. The first budget option place is taken by Machinist X99Z. If you're looking for DDR3 memory compatibility, it's Huananzhi X99 D3, and if you're looking for the ultra budget option, then it's JingSha X99 D4. Of course, once my packages with some extra Chinese X99 boards arrive and I test them, I might change my picks, but for now these are the motherboards that I feel comfortable to recommend, and I'm sure you will not be disappointed if you get it. Anyway, this video is getting a bit too long, that's why I have to wrap it up. Hopefully, this little comparison is going to help someone to make their decision and pick the right X99 motherboard from China. But for now, that's all I have for you. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, goodbye.